I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, smoothing down the collar of my navy blue shirt for the third time. It was the one Mom had mentioned looked presentable last Christmas. High praise in her economy of compliments. My hands were trembling slightly and I pressed them flat against my thighs, willing them to steady. 25 years old and I was still trying to dress for my parents' approval. The anniversary party started in 2 hours. 30 years of marriage and I'd spent the last 3 weeks making sure everything would be perfect. I'd called the caterer twice to confirm the menu, picked up the cake yesterday, spent my Saturday arranging white roses and hydrangeas, Mom's favorites, into centerpieces that now sat in my car, waiting to be transported to the country club. I'd even had the photo montage printed and framed. 30 years of smiling family pictures that told a story I sometimes wasn't sure I recognized. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Claire. Running late. You've got the flowers right? Of course she was running late. Claire was always running late and somehow it was charming when she did it. When I was late it was irresponsible. When she forgot something it was endearing. When I forgot it was just another example of how I never paid attention to details. Got them. See you there. I typed back, keeping it simple. No need to mention that I'd been up since 6, that I'd triple-checked every detail, that my stomach had been in knots for days. Claire wouldn't understand. She'd never had to understand. My eyes caught on the framed photo on my dresser. The 4 of us at Claire's medical school graduation 2 years ago. Mom and Dad flanking Claire, their faces lit with pride so bright it could have powered the whole city. I'm in the edge of the frame, smiling, but if you look closely, you can see I'm already turning away, already fading into the background where I'd learned to exist. Golden child and scapegoat. I'd read about it last month, late at night when I couldn't sleep, scrolling through psychology articles that made my chest tight with recognition. The favored one who can do no wrong. The other one who exists as a receptacle for all the family's dysfunction. I'd closed my laptop feeling sick because naming it didn't make it hurt less. I grabbed my keys and headed out, trying to shake off the memory of last week's phone call with Dad. I don't understand why you're still at that non-profit job, he'd said, his disappointment crackling through the phone line. Claire's already making real money. You're just spinning your wheels, Jordan. When are you going to get serious about your life? I tried to explain that I loved my work, that helping coordinate housing resources for homeless families meant something to me. But he'd already moved on, already decided that my choices were just another in a long line of disappointments. The thing is, I'd tried their way. I'd spent my first 2 years of college as a business major because that's what Dad wanted. I'd gotten decent grades, not great like Claire but decent, and I'd been miserable every single day. When I'd finally switched to social work, Mom had cried. Actually cried. As if I'd announced I was joining a cult instead of choosing a career path where I might actually make a difference. But today was going to be different. I'd made sure of it. Everything was organized, everything was perfect. I'd even written a speech about their marriage that was sincere and heartfelt, that focused on all the good things, the moments when we'd actually felt like a family. Maybe if they saw how hard I'd worked, how much I cared, they'd finally see me the way they saw Claire. Maybe today I'd be enough. I loaded the flowers into my car carefully, making sure each centerpiece was secure. The morning sun caught the white petals, making them glow. They were beautiful. Everything was going to be beautiful. My phone rang as I pulled out of my driveway. Jordan, please tell me you remembered to confirm with the caterer about your father's shellfish allergy. His mom. I called them twice. It's all taken care of. And the cake? They understood we needed it delivered by 3. I picked it up yesterday. It's already at the venue. Pause. Well, I suppose that's fine. Claire said she'd handle the music playlist, so at least that's one less thing for you to mess up. The words hit like a slap, casual and matter-of-fact. One less thing for me to mess up. Not, thank you for handling everything else. Not, we appreciate all your hard work. Just the assumption that I'd mess something up, that my contributions were risks to be mitigated rather than gifts to be appreciated. I'll see you there, Mom, I said, my voice carefully neutral. 2 o'clock sharp. Don't be late. The line went dead. I sat in my driveway for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, breathing slowly. This was fine. This was normal. This was just how they were, and I'd learned long ago not to expect anything different. Hope was dangerous. Hope was what got you hurt. But as I drove toward the country club, white flowers filling my car with their sweet, delicate scent, I felt that treacherous hope anyway. Maybe today would be the day they'd notice. Maybe today would be the day something would change. I should have known better. I should have known that some things are too broken to fix and some people are too comfortable with their roles to ever want to rewrite the script. But I didn't know that yet. Not really. Not in the way I was about to learn it in front of everyone, with my mother's words echoing in the sudden awful silence. Why do you exist just to cause problems? That lesson was still 2 hours away, and I was still driving toward it with a car full of flowers and a heart full of foolish, desperate hope. The country club's event room looked perfect. I'd arrived an hour early to set up the centerpieces, and now white roses and hydrangeas adorned every table, their petals pristine against the cream tablecloths. The cake stood on its own table by the window, 3 tiers of elegant ivory fondant decorated with delicate sugar flowers. The photo montage was positioned near the entrance where everyone could see it as they arrived. I should have felt proud. Instead, I felt like I was waiting for a bomb to go off. Jordan. My Aunt Linda was the first to arrive, pulling me into a hug that smelled like her signature Chanel perfume. Sweetheart, this looks absolutely beautiful. You did all this. I had help, I said automatically, though I hadn't. Claire had been too busy with her hospital rotations, and my parents had been content to let me handle everything. Don't be modest. I know who does all the real work in this family. Aunt Linda squeezed my hand, and something in her eyes told me she saw more than I wanted her to. She'd always been kind to me, had always seemed to notice when Mom's comments landed a little too sharp, when Dad's disappointment hung a little too heavy in the room. Guests began trickling in. I smoothed my dress, a simple black sheath that Mom had deemed appropriate, and moved through the room greeting people, directing them to the bar, making sure everything flowed smoothly. My heels were already pinching my feet, and I could feel a tension headache building behind my eyes. Mom and Dad arrived at exactly 2 o'clock, dressed like they were attending a wedding. Mom wore a silk dress in champagne, her hair and makeup professionally done. Dad was in a suit that probably cost more than I made in a month. They looked happy, united, perfect. Jordan. Mom's eyes swept over the room, cataloging every detail. The flowers are a bit much, don't you think? We didn't need quite so many. I thought they looked nice, I said quietly. And where's Claire? She should be here by now. She's running a bit late. Traffic. Mom made a disapproving sound, but I could see it didn't really bother her. Claire's lateness would be forgiven before she even arrived. My punctuality wouldn't even be noticed. Dad was already at the bar laughing with his golf buddies. He hadn't said a word to me yet. I moved to the kitchen to check on the caterers, my safe space away from the scrutiny. The head caterer assured me everything was on schedule, and I was reviewing the timeline when I heard Claire's voice ring out from the main room. Sorry. The hospital is crazy right now. I returned to find her surrounded by relatives, everyone eager to hear about her work in pediatrics. She looked radiant in a red dress that hugged her curves, her dark hair falling in perfect waves. She'd always been the pretty one, the charming one, the one who lit up a room just by entering it. Jordan, there you are. She pulled me into a quick hug, her perfume overwhelming. Everything looks amazing. You're so good at this stuff. It should have been a compliment. Somehow it felt like being patted on the head. You're so good at the grunt work, the behind-the-scenes tasks, the things that don't really matter. Thanks, I managed. Mom appeared at Claire's elbow. Sweetheart, come tell everyone about that case you had last week. The one with the little boy. And just like that, Claire was swept away to the center of attention, leaving me standing alone near the kitchen door. The afternoon wore on. I made sure drinks were refilled, that the catering staff stayed on schedule, that the music, Claire's playlist, transitioned smoothly through Dad's favorite jazz standards. I smiled until my face hurt. I made small talk with people who asked me polite questions about my life, then looked vaguely disappointed by my answers. Still at the nonprofit? That's nice. No boyfriend yet? Well, you're still young. Claire seems to be doing so well. You must be proud of your sister. Always Claire. Always the comparison. Always the implicit question. Why aren't you more like her? I was refilling the water pitchers when I heard Dad's voice boom across the room. A toast. Everyone, let me propose a toast. I hurried out with a full pitcher in hand, weaving between tables. Dad stood at the center of the room, glass raised, Mom beside him looking pleased. 30 years ago, I married the most wonderful woman in the world, Dad began, and everyone awed appreciatively. We've built a beautiful life together. A successful business. A beautiful home. And 2 daughters who make us proud every day. My chest tightened. 2 daughters who make us proud every day. The lie was so smooth, so practiced that I almost believed it myself. Dad continued talking about their early years, their struggles, their triumphs. I stood frozen near the back, pitcher in hand, watching. Then he gestured to Claire. Our daughter Claire, who's saving children's lives every day at St. Mary's. We couldn't be more proud. Claire blushed prettily as everyone applauded. Dad's eyes found me next, and I waited for my name, for some acknowledgement. And Jordan, who helps out where she can. The words landed like a stone. Helps out where she can. 25 years reduced to an afterthought, a footnote, a vague gesture toward existence. I felt my smile crack but held it in place. A few people glanced at me with something that might have been sympathy. Aunt Linda's face was tight with anger on my behalf. I was setting down the pitcher on the nearest table when it happened. My hand was shaking, I didn't even realize how badly, and the pitcher tilted. Water cascaded across the white tablecloth, soaking the floral centerpiece, dripping onto the floor. Oh my God, someone gasped. I grabbed napkins, already apologizing, already cleaning. I'm so sorry, I'll fix it, it's fine. Jordan. Mom's voice cut through the murmur of concern. She was crossing the room toward me, her face flushed. Can you please be more careful? It was an accident, Mom. I'll clean it up. You're always so clumsy. I don't know why you insist on trying to help when you clearly can't handle simple tasks. The room had gone quiet. People were watching now, their conversations fading. Susan, it's just water, Aunt Linda interjected. It's not a big deal. Stay out of this, Linda. Mom's attention was laser-focused on me, and I could see something building in her eyes, something that had been simmering for weeks, months, maybe years. Do you know how much stress I've been under planning this party? I planned it, I said quietly. I did all of it. What did you say? I stood up straight, soggy napkins in my hands. I said I planned it. The flowers, the caterer, the cake, everything. I've been working on this for weeks. Oh, so now you want credit? Mom's voice was rising. You want us to thank you for doing the bare minimum? For making messes and expecting praise? I didn't expect praise, I said, and I could hear my voice starting to shake. I just wanted. You just wanted attention, Dad interrupted, moving to stand beside Mom. You always do. You couldn't just let us enjoy our day, could you? The room was completely silent now. Even Claire had gone still, her face pale. That's not fair, I whispered. Not fair. Mom's voice was climbing toward something dangerous, something I'd seen in private but never in public. You want to talk about what's not fair? And then she screamed it loud enough that I felt it in my bones. Why do you exist just to cause problems? The world tilted. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Everyone was staring. At her, at me, at the water spreading across the floor like evidence of my inadequacy. Dad's voice came next, cold and final. You've always been a burden. The room fell so silent I could hear my own heart breaking. It made a sound like glass shattering, like ice cracking, like everything I'd built to protect myself splintering into pieces too small to ever put back together. Time moved strangely. I was aware of faces turned toward me, mouths open in shock, but I couldn't hear anything beyond the rushing in my ears. My mother's words echoed in the sudden vacuum. Why do you exist just to cause problems? My father's voice, flat and certain. You've always been a burden. I looked at Claire. She was frozen, her wine glass halfway to her lips, her eyes wide. For a moment I thought she might say something, might defend me. Our eyes met and I saw it there, guilt, discomfort, maybe even sympathy. But she looked away. She always looked away. Aunt Linda had her hand pressed to her mouth. Uncle Robert was staring at my father with something like disgust. Mrs. Patterson from next door had tears in her eyes. 30 witnesses to my obliteration and not one of them said a word. My hands were still clutching the wet napkins. I looked down at them, at the water staining my fingers, and something in me finally broke free from the paralysis. Okay, I heard myself say. My voice sounded strange, distant, like it was coming from underwater. Okay. I dropped the napkins on the table. My legs were moving before I'd consciously decided to move them. I walked past my mother who was still breathing hard, her face flushed with righteous anger. Past my father who wouldn't meet my eyes. Past Claire who whispered, "Jordan, wait." But I didn't wait. I couldn't. I walked through the silent room, past the flowers I'd arranged, past the cake I'd picked up, past the photo montage of a family that had never really included me. My purse was on a chair near the entrance. I grabbed it. Someone, maybe Aunt Linda, called my name, but I kept walking. The hallway seemed endless. My heels clicked on the marble floor, each step echoing. I could feel the tears building but refused to let them fall. Not here. Not where anyone could see. I'd given them enough already. The country club lobby was mercifully empty. The woman at the reception desk looked up, started to smile, then saw my face and the smile died. I pushed through the heavy glass doors into the parking lot. The September air hit me like a slap. It was warm, too warm, and suddenly I couldn't breathe in this stupid dress, in these stupid shoes, in this stupid life where I'd spent 25 years trying to earn love that was never going to come. I made it to my car before the first sob broke free. Then another. And another. I collapsed against the driver's side door, my legs giving out, and slid down until I was sitting on the hot asphalt in my black dress, crying so hard I thought I might shatter completely. Why do you exist just to cause problems? You've always been a burden. The words played on repeat, mixing with every other cruel thing they'd ever said, every dismissal, every comparison, every time I'd been made to feel small and worthless and wrong. It wasn't just today. It was every day. It was my whole life, compressed into that one moment when they'd finally said out loud what I'd always known they felt. I didn't know how long I sat there. Long enough for my tears to slow, for my breathing to even out into something resembling normal. Long enough for the sun to shift, casting long shadows across the parking lot. My phone was buzzing in my purse. I pulled it out with shaking hands. 7 missed calls. 14 text messages. Claire, Jordan, please come back, Claire. Mom's upset, I don't think she meant it, Claire. Where did you go? Aunt Linda. Honey, I'm so sorry. That was inexcusable. Call me when you're ready. Uncle Robert, your parents were way out of line. You okay? And then, because the universe had a cruel sense of humor, one from Mom. You embarrassed us by leaving. We're supposed to cut the cake soon. I stared at that last message until the words blurred. Not an apology. Not even an acknowledgement of what she'd said. Just anger that I'd dared to leave, that I'd made a scene by refusing to stand there and absorb their cruelty with a smile. I laughed, a broken sound that hurt my throat. Then I blocked her number. And Dad's. Just for now. Just so I could breathe. I pulled myself up, using the car door for support. My dress was dirty, my makeup was probably destroyed, and I didn't care. I got in the car, started the engine, and drove. I didn't know where I was going. Away. That was enough. I ended up at Riverside Park, the place I used to come as a teenager when home got too suffocating. I parked near the walking trail and sat on a bench overlooking the water. The river moved slowly, catching the late afternoon light, indifferent to human suffering. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a voicemail. I almost didn't listen to it, but something made me press play. Jordan, it's Aunt Linda. Her voice was tight, angry. I just want you to know that what happened in there was not okay. It wasn't your fault and you didn't deserve any of that. I told your mother exactly what I thought, and I'm probably not welcome at their house anymore, but I don't care. You call me when you're ready. I love you, sweetie. And I'm proud of you for walking out. The tears came again, but different this time. Quieter. Someone had seen it. Someone had witnessed it and known it was wrong. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't oversensitive. I wasn't the problem. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I watched it sink lower, and with it something else was sinking too, the desperate hope that had driven me for so long. The belief that if I just tried hard enough, was good enough, did enough, they would finally love me the way they loved Claire. That hope was dying, and it hurt worse than anything they'd said. But maybe it needed to die. Maybe I needed to stop hoping for something that was never going to happen. My phone lit up with another text. Claire again. Please just tell me you're okay. I typed back. I'm alive. That's all I can manage right now. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then I should have said something. I'm sorry. I stared at those words for a long time. Was she sorry? Or was she just uncomfortable with the mess, with the crack in the perfect family facade? I didn't have the energy to figure it out. I turned off my phone completely and sat by the river as the sky darkened, as the stars began to appear, as the world kept turning despite the fact that mine had just ended. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't face my empty apartment with its photos of family gatherings where I smiled and pretended everything was fine. Instead, I drove to my friend Maya's place and knocked on her door at 9:30, probably looking like I'd survived a natural disaster. "Oh my God, Jordan." She pulled me inside without questions, wrapped me in a blanket, and made tea I didn't drink while I told her everything. "I keep thinking about all the times I made excuses for them," I said, my voice hoarse. "All the times people would notice how they treated me and I'd say, 'Oh, that's just how they are,' or 'They don't mean it that way.' But Maya, they meant it. They've always meant it." Maya sat beside me, her hand on my shoulder. "You know that wasn't about you, right? That was about them. Whatever's broken in them that makes them need a scapegoat." I nodded, but knowing it intellectually and feeling it in my bones were different things. I spent the next 3 days at Maya's, my phone still off, existing in a strange limbo. On the second day I finally turned it back on. 63 messages. I deleted most without reading them. Aunt Linda had called twice more. Claire had sent a long paragraph about how Mom was devastated, and Dad was confused about why I'd overreacted. Overreacted. The word made me want to scream. There was nothing from my parents themselves. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just Claire playing intermediary, trying to smooth everything over so we could go back to pretending everything was normal. But I was done pretending. On the 4th day I wrote a letter. Not to send, I knew they wouldn't hear it, but for myself. I wrote down every memory of being dismissed, overlooked, criticized. Every time I'd been compared to Claire and found wanting. Every moment I'd swallowed hurt to keep the peace. The letter was 7 pages long, and when I finished I cried again. But this time I was crying for the little girl I'd been, the one who'd never understood why nothing she did was ever enough. I wrote a second letter too. This one I would send. "Dear Mom and Dad. What you said at the party wasn't a mistake made in anger. It was the truth you've always felt but usually kept quiet. I've spent my whole life trying to earn your love, trying to be someone you could be proud of, and I finally understand that nothing I do will ever be enough. I'm not a burden. I'm not a problem. I'm a person who deserves respect and kindness, and I will no longer accept anything less. I need space. Don't contact me. When and if I'm ready to talk, I'll reach out. Jordan." I read it 10 times before sending it. Then I pressed send before I could change my mind. 2 weeks later I met Claire for coffee. She looked tired, guilty, uncomfortable. "They're upset," she said. "They think you're being dramatic." "I know." I stirred my coffee, watching the cream swirl. "Claire, I need you to understand something. I can't have a relationship with them right now. Maybe not ever. And I need to know if you can accept that without trying to fix it." She was quiet for a long moment. "I should have defended you. I've always known how they treat you differently. It was easier not to see it." "I know. And I did." Claire had her own survival mechanisms, her own way of navigating our family. I couldn't hate her for it, but I couldn't keep sacrificing myself for her comfort either. "Can we still be sisters?" she asked quietly. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "But not if being your sister means pretending Mom and Dad didn't say what they said." She nodded, tears in her eyes. We didn't hug when we left. 3 months later I was sitting in my apartment when I realized something had shifted. The ache was still there. It probably always would be, but it didn't consume me anymore. I'd started therapy. I'd set boundaries. I'd stopped checking my phone hoping for an apology that would never come. My parents sent a Christmas card as if nothing had happened. I threw it away. Aunt Linda and I had dinner once a month now. Uncle Robert checked in regularly. I was building a family from the people who actually saw me, who valued me, who didn't need me to be smaller so they could feel bigger. I still thought about that moment sometimes. The silence, the stares, my mother's voice cutting through the room. But I also thought about what came after. About choosing myself. About walking away from people who hurt me even when they were supposed to love me. I wasn't their burden anymore. I was free. And that finally was enough. A year and a half after the party, I received a letter. Not an email, not a text, an actual handwritten letter in my mother's careful script. I almost threw it away. But something made me open it. "Dear Jordan, I've been in therapy for 6 months. Your father and I both have. It doesn't excuse what we said, what we did, but I need you to know that I'm finally seeing it. All of it. The therapist asked me to write down every cruel thing I said to you over the years. It took me 3 sessions to finish the list. I couldn't believe how long it was. How could I have said those things to my own daughter? I understand if you never want to see me again. But I'm begging, for a chance to try. Not to go back to how things were. I know that's impossible. But to build something new. Something honest. I'm so sorry, Jordan. You were never a burden. You were never a problem. I was. And I'm trying to be better. I read it 5 times, hands shaking. I called Aunt Linda. What do I do? I asked. What do you want to do? She replied gently. That was the question, wasn't it? Did I want to forgive them? Could I? It took me 2 months to respond. When I finally did, I suggested coffee. Neutral territory. 1 hour. That was all I could promise. My mother looked smaller than I remembered. Older. She twisted her napkin in her hands, barely able to meet my eyes. Thank you for coming, she said. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either. We talked, really talked for the first time in my life. She told me about her own mother, about the impossible standards, the constant criticism she'd internalized and passed down like a disease. She told me about her fear that she'd ruined everything, that she'd lost me forever. She cried. I cried. I don't know if I can fully forgive you yet, I said honestly. But I'm willing to try. Slowly. That's more than I deserve, she whispered. My father joined us for the second meeting. He apologized too, stiffly at first, then with genuine emotion breaking through his usual reserve. I was taught that love was conditional, he said. That it had to be earned. I'm learning that was wrong. Progress was slow. There were setbacks. Moments when old patterns surfaced and I had to remind them, and myself, of my boundaries. But there was also change. Real change. They asked about my work and actually listened. They stopped comparing me to Claire. They showed up consistently doing the hard work of becoming better parents. 2 years after that first coffee, we celebrated Thanksgiving together. As I watched my mother laugh at something Aunt Linda said, as my father asked genuine questions about my nonprofit's latest project, I realized something had shifted inside me. The anger was still there, faint but present. Maybe it always would be. But alongside it was something new. Hope. Not the desperate hope of my younger self, begging for crumbs of affection. This was different. Quieter. More solid. This was the hope that comes from seeing people genuinely try to change. From watching broken things slowly mend. From choosing again and again to believe in the possibility of healing. I wasn't their burden. I wasn't their problem. I was their daughter. And finally, beautifully, painfully, they were learning what that meant.